Hello, I'm Pat Lawson Muse. You know, the worst time to have to worry about whether your affairs are in order is after experiencing the loss of a loved one. Financial advisor Mark Tabron offers helpful tools and strategies to protect you and your family before you're hit with emotional times of grief and loss. He talked about it at the Arc of Safety's recent seminar on grief and loss.
When life gets tough, as it sometimes will, when the road that you're trudging seems uphill, when the funds are low and the debt is high, you want to smile, but you just have to cry. Has anybody ever been there before? Anybody? 2 people? 3 people? If care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not. Never give up, never, because you are a winner. In fact, turn to your neighbor to your left or your right and tell them with enthusiasm that you are a winner. Can you do that? All right, give yourselves a round of applause because you're all winners. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to this presentation. And my name is Mark Tabron, and I have one of my team members with me, Chanel Broadway, and she helps me out a lot. So can you give a round of applause for me, please? Chanel does a great job for us. So we want to talk about a little bit about the business of grief, which means taking care of some of the things that are important financially. Does anybody think it's important to take care of some of the financial matters for your family? So some of the things we're going to talk about hopefully will give you peace of mind if you do them. I have a financial service business, and we've been doing this for 33 years. So we help people with their retirement strategies, their financial strategies. We help people also that are interested in setting up trust and wills. We work with attorneys to help people do that. And so we want to share some information in reference to some of the things that we think will help you when it comes to having peace of mind as far as, taking care of your loved ones is concerned. But first, let me go through a couple of these slides. I don't know if you can't see, y'all don't know, you might have better eyes than I do, but if you need to get up a little closer to the front, if you want to see this presentation, a little bit about my company. We're in Largo, Maryland, which is right up of 202, up there by Kaiser Permanente. Anybody know what Kaiser Permanente is? On 202, we're right up there. And so I've been doing this a long time. I started off in the music business, and then I worked for the Bullets basketball team, and then I started this company, Tabron Associates Financial Services. So if you look inside of your package here, did everybody get one of these? Nobody? Everybody get one? Raise your hand if you need one. Chanel's going to bring one around to you. Okay. All right. For those of you that do have it, this is what we're going to talk a little bit about: estate planning and some of the strategies. Estate planning is in reference to making sure that your estate is in order. Your estate is in order. And some of the strategies help us make sure that there's something to have in your estate when you get ready to leave here. So we're going to talk about some of the documents that you need to have in place and some of the strategies that you should have in place. Now, I am not an attorney. We work with a network of attorneys. We have attorneys right in our building and down the street that we work with. And so we could certainly help you get set up if you're interested in having an estate plan, if you're interested in having a will or a trust. Let me, by show of hands, how many people have a trust? Anybody have a trust in here? A few people? Not too many people. How many people have a will? Okay, a lot of people have wills. Okay. How many people think it's important? Y'all think it's important? Okay. So estate plan, probate, we'll talk about wills, trust, durable power of attorney. This one on the bottom here, Ladybird deed, is actually in Maryland, it's a different deed that you would use. That's a deed that you would use if you want to pass on your house to your family members or someone else without going through probate. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. How many people in this room today are retired? Let me see your hands if you're retired. Oh, wow. A lot of people are retired. Let me see your hands if you're still working. How come the same hands went up? Same hands went up. How many people don't know whether they're retired or working? I mean, yes, okay. Okay. So here's some of the potential risk. There's some risk if you don't have a will or a trust in place. There are some risk. How many people in here have ever had maybe a near-death experience or something that at least scared you to death? Anybody? Anybody has scary? I'll tell you something that happened to me a couple of years ago. My daughter, when she turned 21, she asked me to take her on a boating trip I joined this boating club, and I had just gotten my license. I didn't have a whole lot of experience, but I was good enough to ride up and down the Potomac River and down to the bay. So she asked me to take her and some of her girlfriends on a boating trip. So we all went down to the Navy Yard, and we got in something called a pontoon boat. Anybody ever been in a pontoon boat? Okay, so we took the boat from the Navy Yard over to Oxon Hill, and it was a very smooth ride over there. And on the way back, she had 10 girlfriends with her, and they were all made up, and they were all looking really pretty, and they wanted to take pictures. So they all got in the front of the boat to take pictures. And a big boat came by, and it created a huge wave. And so the front of our pontoon boat went up in the air like this, and when it came down, it went underwater. It looked like this was it. I mean, I was really scared. The boat went like underwater. Everybody got soaked. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but it popped right back up. Some of the kids laughed and some of them cried. But I was happy. I was so happy that we made it out of that one. That was a close one. I don't know if you can see this. So if this picture up here, this is my daughter after she got soaked. Can y'all see that? Look at that. She got soaked. We made it out. But the reason I tell that story is because you never know when you're leaving here. You know, we do know nobody's getting out of here alive. Y'all know that, right? We don't know when we're going to leave. And it's something tragic. It was a real, there's a lot of tragedies happening, but lately, a lot of them. But I think this one has kind of caught everybody's attention because it was so close to home over the Potomac River when that plane crashed a few weeks ago. And then people then were so young. So you really want to have you want to get things in order. And, a lot of the folks in this room are my age or older. But you really want to have your affairs in order so it's not so difficult for your family members when you leave. Does that make sense? You want to have things in order so it's not so difficult for your family members. And so there's some potential risk of not having a will in place. And not only that, sometimes when you don't have a will in place and you don't tell your family what you want, your family members, sometimes they fight over things. You ever heard that before? Sometimes family members fight. You can think about it. You don't want, when you leave here, and you have children, you don't want them fighting each other. Sometimes they'll start thinking about things that happened when they were kids, and they start fighting each other, and they start fighting over the house and over the things that are left over. So if you want to avoid that and have peace of mind, you might want to have your act in order. Anybody know this guy right here? Can y'all see that far? These ladies up here, y'all can see him, Prince. Y'all remember Prince? Of course you remember Prince. Did you hear about Prince's story when he passed away? Of course, he was pretty young. He's in his 50s. He didn't, nobody was thinking he's going anywhere, so he probably didn't think he had to rush to have a will and trust in place, and he didn't. And it took years for them to settle his estate. It took 6 years to settle his estate. They came up with the conclusion that he had over $150 million in assets, and they charged $45 million to sell his estate. Can you believe that? They took a third of the money. Now, I don't know if anybody here has $150 million. I mean, if you do, we could talk, but the point is, would you really want the court to spend all this money, your family spend all this money to sell your estate when you could do it before you leave here, and they won't have to do that. They won't have to go through probate. So the risk of not having a will, family fighting over assets, impact of estate taxes. And if you want to leave, before I start talking about legacy, how many people are concerned about leaving a legacy for your family? Anybody concerned about leaving a legacy? Maybe it's for your spouse, children, grandchildren. So if you plan on leaving a legacy, then there's some things you might want to do because, things are changing quickly financially. Y'all know that, right? In this country, things are really rapidly changing. And I've been doing this for a long time. And I honestly have never seen a time more important than right now than to pay attention to your finances. Because if you're paying attention to your finances, you probably know how shaky the stock market has been. You know that there's a new round of tariffs is supposed to start next week, and things are changing rapidly. So this is the time to really, really pay attention to your finances. Okay, so what is probate? So probate is a legal process in which a person deceased will authenticate their assets. You authenticate your assets, and this is done while you're living. While you're living, you can set up things that won't have to go through probate. So the deceased person is authenticated, and their assets are inventoried, debts and taxes are settled, and their property is distributed according to their will or applicable laws. So if you don't have a will, guess who will decide what happens to your estate? The court will decide what happens to your estate. So if you want to be the person to make that decision, you want to at least have a will, but a will does not avoid probate. A lot of people think, I got a will, I'm okay, right? Not as far as probate is concerned. So what is the subject of probate? Personal property, real property. When you think of personal property, think about your house that you live in. Real property, liquid assets, business interests, retirement investments. So if you don't have a probate, if you don't have a will, all of that is subject to probate. What's not subject to probate is properties that are jointly held. So if you own a property and somebody else is titled on that property, that is not subject to probate. If you have a beneficiary designated, it's not subject to probate. So you want to make sure that you have a beneficiary listed on all of your accounts. And every year somebody comes in for a review and they might say, Mark, I had this old 401k, I forgot all about it. And I say, well, who's the beneficiary? And I say, well, I don't know. And sometimes we look at it as the ex-husband or ex-wife, or sometimes it's somebody that's not even living anymore. So you might want to go back and look at all of your accounts and make sure they all have a beneficiary, because if you don't name a beneficiary, the court will name a beneficiary. So you want to make sure that they have. Now, if you have a beneficiary, then it can avoid probate. All of your accounts at the bank, you want to make sure you have a POD, pay on death, on all your accounts, whether it's a savings account, money market account, CD account, your accounts at work. A lot of times people come to see me and they don't have beneficiaries on their life insurance at work. If you have a beneficiary, it avoids probate. If you do not have a beneficiary, it's going to go through probate. Has anybody ever been through probate before? Anybody? What was it? Can you tell me a little bit about the experience when we went through probate? Did it take a long time? 5 years. Well, she's getting the mic for you.
Okay. I started off trying to do it myself, but then it became very complicated. And so we had to hire an attorney to handle it. And it's probably some extra stuff that went in because my brother was living in the house and just a whole bunch of other stuff. But it just took a very long time. And I don't know if that's normal to take that long, but I know, and you mentioned trust. And it's my understanding that in a trust, you don't have to go through probate.
That's correct.
I'm sure you'll talk about that.
That's correct.
So
And was it the attorney? Was it expensive?
Yeah, he was expensive and he took a lot of it. So.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't wish that on anybody, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. So you want to avoid probate if you can. So if you have your beneficiaries titled, if you have a beneficiary on your accounts, it will avoid probate. If you don't, the court's going to decide who is going to get the money. Life insurance beneficiary, life insurance, as long as you have a beneficiary, it avoids probate. Property conveyed by a valid trust avoids probate. Assets transferred in beneficiary designation, business interest transfers. In Maryland, there's a special deed that you can get if you want to transfer your house to a family or anyone, actually. That's not a ladybird deed. We're doing this for another state when I use this particular presentation. So there is a deed in Maryland that you can use to transfer your house without a trust. And, of course, personal property assigned. So a will, characteristics of a will. So a will is something that you do while you're living. In a will, you're going to designate who's going to get what. Even if you don't have a trust, it's still better to have a will because at least people know what your desires are. In fact, if you get nothing else from this presentation, I would at least suggest that you write down what your wishes are. Even if it's not in a trust or will, just write it down somewhere and make it clear so your family members know what you want. And there won't be a lot of arguments about it. You can tell your family member, you can make a tape, a video. You could put it on, write it down, take a picture of it, put it somewhere, but a will would be better. So wills created during your lifetime, it gives a estate to your beneficiaries. It names an executor or administrator, still subject to probate, only takes effect after you die and distributes the estate all at once. So, it also enables you to decide who's going to be your executor. If you don't decide, the family's going to have to figure it out on their own. And that's sometimes a lot of arguments start right there as well. Control how to distribute your estate, name a guardian or conservative for minors, but again, it does not avoid probate. So, what is a trust? Now, the trust is a legal document under which a person or institution controls property given by another person for the benefit of a third party. Now, you don't have to have an attorney to set up a trust. There are legal Zoom and some things online that you can do. Most of my clients like to talk to an attorney because they want to know they have specific things they want to do. And a trust can allow you to, they call it controlling your assets from the grave. With a trust, you can not only decide who's going to get what, but you can decide when they're going to get it. I'll give you an example. Does anybody have young children or grandchildren that you would want to leave money to, but you wouldn't want them to get it all at one time? And you might want to, inside of your trust, you can determine when they're going to get the money. You can say, this money right here is designated for my grandchild or my grandchildren, and at 18, they get some of it. And if they're going to go to college, maybe they can get more of it. If they're going to start a business, they may be to get a lump sum. If they're going to buy a house, they can get a lump sum. If they want to buy a Ferrari, they can't get the money. They can't get the money. So you can determine when the people get the money, not only who gets the money, but how they get the money and when they get the money. So a lot of people like that idea. There's a lot of misconception about what a trust would do as far as avoiding taxes or lawsuits or things of that nature. And that's because there's two types of trust. There are a lot of subtypes of trust, but two main types of trust. The two main types of trust is the revocable and the irrevocable. In a revocable trust, you can make changes. You can change your mind as many times as you want to. You're the trustee and you can make changes. If you put assets in an irrevocable trust, they're no longer your assets. And so that's when the asset is protected against lawsuits against you because it's not yours. Give an example. If you have a property and you decide, I want this to be an heir property and I'm going to put this in an irrevocable trust, and somebody sues you, well, it's not yours. So they can't get access to that property. But at the same time, that property is not yours anymore. So when you put something in irrevocable trust, you want to be sure that you're okay with it not being your asset. Does that make sense? Now, if it's in a revocable trust, you can go back and change your mind. You can have the beneficiaries for that particular asset. And 5 years from now, you've changed your mind. You can go back and make changes as many times as you want to. So you want to be very clear. Most people are looking for revocable trusts, but there are times when people want irrevocable trusts. I'll give you a couple of examples. Sometimes people might want to put money in what's called an ILIT. An ILIT is a irrevocable life insurance trust. An irrevocable life insurance trust, sometimes when people want to have generational wealth, they want the money to stay in a family. Sometimes people will do that with a farm or a business. I was at the bank not too long ago, and the banker was telling me about a family that had this particular business, and nobody in the family could sell the business. They could run the business, but they couldn't sell the business because it was in an irrevocable trust. And that family member wanted to make sure it stayed in the family. So that's one of the purposes for irrevocable trust. We see that sometimes with people who have farms as well. Sometimes a person may have a special needs child or grandchild. And if they have too much assets, they can't get help from the government. So when they pass away, they don't want the assets to go to the special needs child because now they might not qualify for the help from the government. So they may put that money in an irrevocable trust. Now the family can still use it for the child, but it's not in the child's name. It's in the trust name. And so it doesn't change the financial picture. Does that make sense? So there are times when people will use an irrevocable trust, but most of the time when people are sitting down with me and we're talking to them about their trust or their estate strategy, most of the time they want what's called a revocable trust. Durable power of attorney. Now, durable power of attorney is a legal document that grants someone the authority to make financial and legal decisions for you. So there's often, people get older, they may want a family member. A lot of times my clients will call me and say, Mark, I want to come in and bring my daughter with me. I want to bring my son with me. I want them to know what I have. And sometimes they actually give them durable power of attorney. You might do it if you think you're slipping. A lot of times people say, well, I'm not remembering things that well. They want somebody else to have control. So if that's the case, you may want to do that. So there are a lot of legal documents that can be set inside of your trust, medical documents that give people the authority to make medical decisions if you're in a coma and you want to avoid your family from fighting. So these are very, very crucial and very, very important documents. Even if you don't go to an attorney to get them done, you can still get a lot of this stuff done very inexpensively on your own. And a lot of financial professionals can help you with some of these things. Now, when you go to see an attorney, we find that the average in this area is between $3,000 and $5,000, depending on the complexity of the trust. If it's an individual trust, obviously it's going to be a little less expensive. If you're married, they may give you an option to have an individual trust or joint trust together. They may do what's called a his, a hers, and a ours. That means the husband can have a trust, the wife will have a trust, and they'll have one together called a family trust. So that one's a little bit more complicated. But if it's not that complicated, it's usually somewhere around $3,000. But each attorney has their own figures on what they charge for that. So in Maryland, it's not called a ladybird deed, but there's a deed in Maryland that will allow you to transfer your house to your family members or whoever without going through probate. So that particular deed is good for medical planning. It's good for federal and state taxation step up. It's a low cost to arrange. It's not very expensive to do that deed. And it avoids joint owner liability. It has better creditor protection. It avoids uncapping, and it can be completed while you're alive. So these are some of the documents, and I've given you a list of those documents inside of your pamphlet, inside of your booklet. And so these are some of the documents you need to get in place to have a estate plan. Now, if you plan on having something in your estate to leave to people, you need to have an estate strategy. And we think it's important to have a strategy because a lot of times people make a lot of mistakes and there's not a lot going to the family. And so we want to help you to avoid some of those mistakes. Now, I'm not going to go through everything on this list, but there are a few things that I think are very, very important that I'm going to try to touch on, especially because of the changes that we have going on right now. Now, one of the changes we have, obviously, is what's going on with the government and the DOGE and the downsizing of the government. Does anybody here work for the government? For a lot of people, okay. So somebody earlier I heard said that she was having grief and she didn't know you could have grief while you're living. She thought it was only for when somebody passed away. People are having grief now. You know that, right? Someone was in my office Thursday. I mean, she was really boo-hooing. She was crying bad. And she said she'd been working on a job for like 25 years. That's all she does is go to work. And she's so sad because now she doesn't go to work anymore because her job downsized. She got fired. I've had people in my office that were on probation, just on probation. They hadn't become full-time yet, and they've gotten fired. And so there are a lot of people very upset. And people are grieving because they can't believe what is happening. And it may get worse because they're still talking about more cuts, a lot more cuts. I mean, a lot of people were really, I think, totally baffled about the Department of Education. It looked like something that Congress had to do, but it looks like they're cutting Department of Education. So there are a lot more cuts coming. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs. But now we find it's not just government workers, it's contractors. Anybody a contractor in here? A lot of the contractors started to become affected. If you've been watching the news, some of the law firms are becoming affected. I had a client in my office last week got fired from a law firm. So there's a lot of things that are coming financially. So this is a very important time to pay attention to your finances. Has anybody here been paying attention to the stock market? Anybody? Yes or no? Well, stock market has its worst month or so since 2022. And so a lot of people are wondering, is this the beginning of the next recession? And the reason why that's so important is because the stock market has had what we call a 14-year bull run. It means it's gone up for almost 14. It has a couple of dips, but for the most part, it's been up for 14 years. That's not normal. It normally goes up for 5 years, and then it goes down for 2 years. 5 years up, 2 years down. And the recessions, real recessions are bad financially because the S&P 500, which is the number one index in the country, is usually down over 40%. The last major recession we had, the S&P 500 was down 45%. Some people lost half of their money. And so that's on the 5 years up, 2 years down. Well, now we went up 14 years. We have no idea what the down's going to look like because we've never had a 14-year bull run. And, of course, we've never had anybody slashing the government the way they are now and talking about these tariffs. So we don't know what's coming. I would advise everybody to pay attention to your allocations, how your portfolio is allocated. You want to take a look at whether you have a 401k or a TSP or 403b. You want to make sure you understand where is the money. Where is the money? Is it in stocks? Is it in bonds? Is it mutual funds? Is it in cash? Is any of it in a stable fund? Because if you're getting close to retirement, you want to make sure you don't lose too much money right before you retire. Now, imagine when we talk about estate planning, people say, well, I'm going to leave this money to my wife or my husband. Well, I'm gonna leave this money over here to my spouse, my children. And we have a major recession. 2007, I know people that lost over 50% of their money, half. You lose half your money and pass away, that money is not going to your family. That money's gone. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to your portfolio while while you're here, so that when you leave, you have something to leave to your family members. Does that make sense? On the other side of that sheet that has documents and strategies, it has a checkpoint. And this checkpoint, let's go through that real quick. It says, this is a question to ask yourself. Do you have the following? Do you have a will? Yes or no? Do you have a trust? Do you have a health care director? Do you have power of attorney? If you do have a will or trust, has it been updated in the last 3 years? If not, you might want to have it updated. Do you know how your estate plan works? Do you have an estate plan or a strategy? Are your beneficiaries up to date? So you definitely want to check all your accounts, make sure you have a beneficiary, and make sure it's the person you want to be the beneficiary. Now, this little QR code right here, we have, I guess we didn't even go through that. We do a radio show. I think that's in your package too. We do a radio show on 104.1 on Praise Radio. It comes on 7 o'clock on Saturday mornings. And I also have a couple of books. One of my books is called You Are a Winner, and my latest book is called The Rhythm of Retirement Success. And that QR code, if you'd like to get a copy of the book, just take your phone and scan the QR code. You can download it. There are a lot of resources that you can get right from that QR code. There's some white pages on taxes. I think there might be some on estate planning, on retirement strategies, and you can also download a copy of the book right there from this QR code. When I finish in a few minutes, I'm going to put a QR code up. We'll take you to the website. On the website, protectandgrowmoney.com, all the radio show episodes are there. So if you want to catch up on some radio episodes, you can do all that right there. All right, moving right along. Okay, another thing, 3 things that I'm just going to highlight. If you want to get money to your spouse or to your children or your grandchildren, these 3 things you want to watch out for. Number 1, I've already talked about the fact that you want to be careful that you don't lose too much money, because I've seen people get wiped out financially when we've had major downturns. The other thing is you want to watch out for is taxes. How many people think taxes will go up? Anybody? Let me see your hands if you think taxes are going up. Okay. Well, here's the thing. Taxes are supposed to go up at the end of this year. The tax laws that we have are supposed to sunset December the 31st, 2025, because we had tax cuts in 2017. They're supposed to expire automatically. And a lot of my clients have been feverishly trying to put some of their money in tax-free buckets like Roth IRAs and cash value life insurance and muni bonds. For the last 4 or 5 years, they're trying to beat the clock before taxes go back up. Because what most people don't know is that taxes are low right now. They're actually the lowest they've been in 80 years right now. And what most people don't know, and they don't believe me, sometimes I tell them, so I have to tell them to Google it, taxes were over 90% one time in this country. Over 90. They went up to 94%. That's right. And because we've had tobacco's in this country, like the Great Depression, we had soup lines. They had to raise taxes to get out of that one. World War II. So taxes were very, very high. Y'all remember Ronald Reagan, right? What did Ronald Reagan do before he was president? You see, who said he was a cowboy? He wasn't a cowboy. He acted like a cowboy. No, he was an actor, right? But Ronald Reagan was supposed to do 3 movies a year, and they couldn't figure it out. Now they figured it out after a while. He would only do 2. Would never get to the 3rd movie. You know why? Taxes was over 90% when he was acting. The 3rd movie was free. He wasn't doing a free movie. Would you? No. But here's my point. The point is that now because Trump won the presidency and the tax cuts were really his tax cuts, everybody believes he's trying to extend the tax cuts and make more tax cuts. And so that could be good and bad. The good part is that your taxes may not go up at the end of this year. The bad part about it is economists say we can't afford the tax cuts. You see, the interest on the debt has gotten so bad in this country that part of what they're saying about what's going on financially is true. This country got a problem, a real big problem. We got too much debt. We've become the number 1 debtor in the world. We used to be the number 1 importer in the world. Now we're the number 1 debtor in the world. We borrow from not just China. We borrow money from lots of countries, and we borrow a lot of money. And that could create a challenge for all of us. And I'm going to show you why. So if you have most of your money in what's called qualified plans, you want to make sure you start working on what's called tax diversification. Now, most people probably heard by now that at this age, the older you get, more money you should put in a safe place, right? Older you get, more money in a safe place. Why? Should a 50 or 60 or 70-year-old be doing the same thing as a 20, 30, or 40-year-old financially? Yes or no? What do you think? Should a 60-year-old and a 30-year-old be doing the same thing? No. What does a 30-year-old have that a 60-year-old doesn't have? Time, right? So we have a major crash and we lose 50% of the money and you're 30 years old, you could laugh. Could you laugh if you're 60 or 70? It's not funny. And it happens. People lose half their money at this age. And so you want to make sure you have so you want to have portfolio diversification. You don't want all your money in one place. Your dear old grandmother probably told you don't put all your eggs in what? Oh, y'all all got the same grandmother. As universal wisdom, don't put all the money in the same place. So you diversify your portfolio. You get older, you want to make sure you put more money in a safe place. Market crashes, you're okay. We try to help our clients make sure that they're going to be able to weather any financial storm. Do y'all think financial storms are coming? Yes or no? What do you think? Are they coming? They're coming. You want to be ready. You want to be ready. So diversify your portfolio, but you also want to diversify your tax portfolio. Because if you have all your money in qualified plans, you may be setting yourself up for what we call the tax bomb. What's a qualified plan? That's your 401k, 403b, TSP, IRAs, individual retirement accounts. That money hasn't been taxed. It all has to be taxed. And here's the problem. Most economists think that taxes are going to get jacked up in the future. Really bad. Really bad. Let me show you something. So even if you don't want to pay taxes right now, because we've all probably been taught, at least I was when I was younger, you probably taught the same thing. Defer, defer, defer. Y'all heard that, right? Defer, because when you retire, you're going to be in a what? Lower tax bracket. Half the country's not in a lower tax bracket. And the people that are in a lower tax bracket, they grow back into a higher tax bracket, because what do you have more of when you retire than you did when you were working? Time. Don't you have more time? What are you going to do at that time? Sit around and watch Netflix? No, what are you going to do? You're going to travel and you're going to hang out and you're going to go places. You're going to spend money. And so a lot of times you start spending money out of your IRA and your 401k and your TSP. And guess what IRS calls that? Income. It's taxed just like your paycheck is taxed. Now, if you retire and you have, say, $6,000 worth of expenses, and now you retire, some people don't have pension plans, right? What do you have? 401k. So you have a Social Security, and that's not $6,000. So what do you got to do? Take the money out your 401k. Guess what IRS calls that? Income. You're still at $6,000 a year. Your taxes didn't change. So you're not in a lower tax bracket. Well, here's the problem. If taxes go up, now you got a problem. Potential tax rates. The risk taxes are higher than planned when passing on your inheritance or your assets. They may not get it. And I mean, they're really, economists are really sounding the alarm about where taxes may be in the future, because legislatively they can change it anytime they want to. Y'all know that, right? You see that now. With a stroke of a pen, things could change overnight. Stroke of a pen. Taxes can go up 5, 10, 15, 20, but it was a stroke of a pen. Now, one time Social Security was not taxed at all. Ronald Reagan decided it should be taxed. Stroke of a pen, 50% tax. It's not just a Republican thing, because then Bill Clinton came along and said, let's make it 75. Do you think it's going to be difficult for somebody making 100? No. Then they came up with a new thing called IRMA. Has anybody ever heard of IRMA? Y'all heard of Uncle Sam? Have you heard of Aunt Irma? If you make too much money, they charge you more money for your Medicare just because you have money. If you make over, I think this year might be $108,000. If you're single and you make over $108,000, you don't pay $178 a month for your Medicare. You pay $2 something. And it's 5 levels of IRMA. You could get up to $500 and something just for your Medicare. It's a tax. So they can make taxes without calling them taxes. And so a lot of these things are probably on the way. So where taxes headed, they can only go up, down, or higher. Look at this. I don't know if you can see this chart right here, so I'll tell you the numbers. In 2023, the country took in $4.4 trillion, mainly from taxes. But we spent $3.8 trillion on mandatory spending, that's Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Medicare is underfunded. Medicaid's underfunded. Social Security, they say if they don't fix it by 2033, it will run out of money. Now, here's the problem. They're already trying to cut things out of Medicaid and Medicare. Social Security, that's a ping pong right now. So we spent another $0.6 trillion servicing the debt. So 3.8 and 0.6 trillion, that's 4.4 trillion. We brought in 4.4 trillion. We spent 4.4 trillion. We haven't got to education yet, military, roads. We haven't got to anything else. And we've already spent all the money. So what are we going to have to do? Borrow more money. So we had the discretionary spending came to another $1.7 trillion. So that means we spent 6.1 trillion, brought in 4.4. You see where the problem comes in? Now, the economists are telling us if we don't fix the problem in a couple of years, all the money that we bring in from taxes is going to go to pay the interest on the debt. Not the debt, the interest on the debt. How many people think taxes going up in the future? Now, what happens to your paycheck when taxes go up? How many people, anybody on a fixed income, anybody retired and got like, your money is coming in? Okay, so think about where your money is today. What happens if taxes go up 5%? How about 10? How does that affect your buying power if things go up 15%? And the worst part about it is at the same time taxes are going up, isn't food and gas and water and everything else going up too? So it's costing you more money. And if taxes go up, you have less money to pay for the things that you need. So we have a challenge. And that's why I'm telling people this is a time to pay attention to your money. You want to find out what you can do. And if you plan on passing money over to your family, you got to make sure you have some money to pass on. So you got to do some smart things. So first thing I said is protect your money. Make sure you don't lose it. Number 2, diversify your tax portfolio. Put some money in a tax-free bucket, which I'm going to share with you in a minute. And then the third one is long-term care coverage. I heard a couple of people talk about family members that passed away. My dad passed away about 5 or 6 years ago. That was one of the hardest things I experienced in my life. It was very, very difficult. One of my friends told me I should have gone to grief counseling. I probably should have. My mom has dementia. She's 91 years old, and that was very tough when she first. I'm a little bit more used to it now, but it was Anybody have a family member with dementia? It's tough, isn't it? It's really tough. And but we're a little bit more used to it now, but it was really, really tough. So I know a little bit about grief, that type of grief. But also, we want to make sure that people are okay. Our clients come in. I've had clients come in the last year that a couple of times it's been spouses passed away, and it's been husbands. Now, guys, I don't know if this is not always true, but they say statistically speaking that women live longer than men. Have y'all heard that before? They say women live longer than men, and they say that most men die married, which means most women die what? Single. And they tell us that most of the people in the nursing home are women. So the next point is long-term care is important, right? Long-term care is important for you, but it might be important for your family as well. Because this presentation is about trying to take care of the business of making sure that you're okay and your family is okay. And you don't want to leave them with a lot of problems. And how many people know long-term care is expensive if you need it? And if you want to stay home, first of all, trust me, you want to stay home. You don't want to be in a nursing home. So if you're staying home, somebody's got to take care of you. You know what triggers long-term care plans? Not being able to perform 2 out of 6 activities of daily living. That means you can't feed yourself, bathe yourself, clothe yourself, toiletry, bladder control, or you're not mobile. If a doctor says that, if you have a long-term care plan, that's when they'll start giving you money. If you can't do 2 out of 6, you can't take care of yourself. If you can't feed yourself or bathe yourself, you can't take care of yourself. That means if somebody's got to do it for you. Who's it going to be? Probably a family member, right? You think it's tough on the family member? It's a job. It's a job. We have a nurse's aide that comes in. Well, she is a nurse's aide. One of them is just a home health care provider. They come in at 10 o'clock in the morning. They leave at 6 o'clock every day, 7 days a week. So it's tough. And the cost for that is national average is between $22 and $24 an hour to get a home health care provider. So if you just do easy math, every 4 hours is about $100. So 7 days a week, that's $700. If you need somebody like we do 8 hours a day, you're talking about $1,400 a week. And that's to stay home. Now, if you have to go into a nursing home, that's a whole different story. Now you're talking about $80,000 to $110,000 a year in this area, and it's going up fast. So why do I bring that up? Because there's three things that we think can help, can prevent you from leaving money in your estate to your family. One of them is because you lost it because the market crashed and you didn't understand what to do with your money. You didn't diversify. Number two, we think taxes are going to go up so high that a lot of people are going to get wiped out financially because they didn't have tax diversification. And number three, insurance companies are telling us 7 out of 10 people end up needing long-term care. 7. That's almost everybody. So you might want to have something in your portfolio to help you out with that so you don't get wiped out and you don't make it so hard on your family. Okay. So real quick, let me give you a couple of solutions. All right, one solution when it comes to, I'm going to start with the tax solution. The tax solution, when you think about taxes, why don't you stop thinking about what you can do for April 15th to get lower taxes this year? You want to start thinking, that's called micro. You want to think macro. What's macro? How can I lower my taxes for the next 20 years, 30 years? They tell us some people are going to be in retirement longer than you were in the workforce. Some people will be around for another 20, 30, 40 years. How do you reduce your taxes over the time period? Okay. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things you can do real quick. One thing is called a Roth IRA. How many people have heard of a Roth IRA? You might want to start considering Rothing some of your money. Rothing your money means you pay the taxes now, and according to IRS, that money gets to go tax-free for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. Unless they renege, you don't pay taxes anymore. Here's something you could do that's really easy. Do you know they changed the rule not too long ago? They said your 401k, most 401k companies now let you Roth. And most people don't know it. I would go to work Monday and ask, if you're not doing it, I would go to work and ask, call your HR department and say, hey, can I Roth? And if they say yes, you might consider putting some money in the Roth side of your 401k so the money grows tax-free. What good is it to save a whole bunch of money in a 401k and you don't get to keep it? You pay taxes. I mean, imagine you have $250,000, $500,000. You have $1 million. We have people come in and have $1 million in their TSP or their 401k. Imagine if you saved all that money and taxes go up to 40, 50%. You wasted all that time. Now, if you had it on the Roth side, unless the IRS reneges, that's your money without taxes. So you might want to consider doing a Roth. By the way, the government always has had it. 401ks just started, but TSP, if you work for the government, you can Roth. Just tell them, you just go in, change your allocations, and instead of taking all the tax breaks, you might consider putting some money on the Roth side, and that way the money stays tax-free. Now, even if you're not working, you can still Roth. It's called a conversion. A lot of people come and say, oh, Mark, I messed up. Well, how'd you mess up? I didn't convert. I didn't Roth any of my money when I was working. Now I can't. Yeah, you can. Even if you're not working, you can have a Roth IRA. You can convert money. If you have a 401k or traditional IRA or 403b or TSP, you can move money to a Roth IRA. And the way you want to do it is efficiently. It means you're going to do a little bit at a time. How do you eat an elephant? Anybody have it? One bite at a time. That's how you can Roth. Now, most people think, well, I can't Roth, it's too much money. You can. You could do $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year. But at least you're putting some money in the tax-free buckets, 3 buckets: after tax, pre-tax, tax-free. Most people have most of the money in the pre-tax bucket. The after-tax bucket, that's your savings account, your checking account, money market account. Let me see, I got those buckets up here somewhere. Where are the buckets? There they are. Those are the buckets. After tax, checking account, savings account, money market account. You've already paid the taxes. That's good news. But do you have to pay taxes again? How long? For as long as you live. Every year for the rest of your life, you'll pay tax over and over again on the same money. How about the pre-tax bucket? IRA, 401k, TSP hasn't been taxed. Here's the problem. They told you to defer, but you can't defer forever because the IRS is going to make you take money out whether you want to or not. It's called a required minimum distribution. At 73, you have to take money out of those buckets so you can be taxed, and it goes up every year for the rest of your life. You got to take the money out. That third bucket is one you want to focus on. This is a pre-tax. That's the tax-free. The Roth IRA, muni bonds, appreciation of capital assets to after death, and cash value life insurance. Cash value life insurance is one of the best tax vehicles that we have available in the financial world. Why? Because the death benefit is tax-free to your beneficiaries. So if you think I'm going to leave some money to my children, best way to leave it to them is through life insurance. Why? It's not taxed. They're going to get the money. If you have an IRA that has $1 million in it, they got to take the money out. There's a new rule. They can't take it out over their lifetime. They have to get it out in 10 years. So that means if they're already making good money and you leave money, they're not going to get the money. Why? Because Uncle Sam's going to take a big part of it because now they're going to be in the highest tax bracket. So you take some of that money, you put it in life insurance if you want to leave it to your beneficiaries. It's tax-free. I just talked about long-term care. Did you know that a lot of insurance companies, all of them that we use, let you take your life insurance while you're living now if you need long-term care? If you can't perform those 2 out of 6 activities of daily living, the companies let you take the death benefit and use it for long-term care. In fact, you go to Disney World if you want to because they send you the money. They don't send it to the nursing home or the nurse's aide. So it's tax-free. If you use the money for long-term care, your death benefit for long-term care is tax-free. And did you know life insurance is a tax code. 401k is not something your job made up. It's a tax code. It's the IRS tax code. So is life insurance. 7702 says you don't have to pay taxes in the money that's in life insurance policy, gross tax deferred. You don't have to pay taxes when you take it out as long as you take it out as a policy loan. It's literally a code that says you don't have to pay taxes. So you might want to consider that, okay, to help you with your taxes and your long-term care. All right, this chart right here, I don't know if y'all can see that. I told you earlier that this is the S&P 500. That red line is the S&P 500. You see how long that line is? That's the longest bull run in history. You see this one? I don't know if you can see this right here. This dip right here. The reason I said you should go home and pay attention to your allocations, that dip right there was the worst recession in the history of the United States. That's when the housing bubble burst. According to Ben Bernanke, who was the chairman of the Federal Reserve, he said more money was lost in that recession than was lost in the Great Depression. The S&P 500 went down 46%. You had people, 80-year-old people going back to work. 80-year-old people going back to work. They worked at Walmart, CVS, McDonald's. All across the country, you had people running back to work at Walmart. Why does the 80-year-old have bill money in the stock market? Do you have your bill money in the stock market? Because a lot of economists saying we're headed for a big crash now. So if you do, you might want to do something different, okay? So I'm going to bring this plane home for a landing. I'm not going to give you statistics. Here's a checkpoint number 2. Are your 3 tax brackets set up to pass on money efficiently to your spouse? Let me see my married people. Where are my married people? Don't be ashamed, married people. God, a lot of married people. You got a lot of married people in here. Is your money set up to effectively go to your spouse when you pass away? Or is it going to get eaten up by something else? Is it going to get eaten up by the market? Or is it safe? Money you want to leave to your beneficiary, your spouse, maybe that shouldn't be in the market. Do you have an IRA or exit strategy? How are you going to get the money out and save on taxes? Is your plan currently set up for unexpected death of a spouse? If your spouse passes away, are you okay? We've had people came in last year. I had about 2 clients and one person that wasn't a client. She had heard me on the radio. She said she could not remember my name. And she was laying in the bed one morning. She said, Tabron. And she got up and called my office and came to my office that day. And she told me her husband had died. And she said, I don't know nothing about our finances. I don't know nothing. I wasn't paying no attention. He handled everything. One of my clients came in and told us the exact same thing. He said, we don't know anything about our finances. My suggestion to people is you might want to pay attention to, if you're not paying attention to finances, this might be a good time to do it. Suppose your spouse passed away, unexpectedly. Then you got a challenge. You might want to talk about it. A lot of times people come in. It was one of the last people I talked to yesterday. She's a client now. She said, my husband, we don't talk about our finances together. He got his, I got mine. I said, well, y'all need to know something about each other, because sometimes a spouse passes away and then you can't even keep your house because there's not enough money. So anyway, I'm encouraging you to talk to each other. If you're not talking, talk to each other, and make sure that you got some things together so your spouse is okay when you leave. Does that make sense? That makes sense, because that's part of the legacy. So it's hard enough if somebody pass away, and you pass away and don't have no money. Same thing with life insurance. If you don't have any life insurance, don't make it hard on your family. Get some life insurance, right? It's hard enough for the family if you pass away. You pass away, now they got to take up a GoFundMe. At least get a burial policy, something. Make it easier on your family. Am I making any sense to anybody? Okay. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask me some questions. I'm going to say this before we start the questions. Estate planning. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, there's a couple of ways you can contact us. Number one, inside your folder, there's a green sheet. You can fill it out, give it to Chanel. She'll set an appointment for you to come to our office right up here in Largo, Maryland. Also, did she do it? Yeah. There's a board back there, and it's on that board, there's some stickies. Those stickies have times that are available in our office for meetings. If you want to have a strategy session to talk about trust and wills, if you want to talk about your retirement strategy, married couples, if you want to get together and talk about how you can make sure your spouse is okay if you leave, if you're concerned about long-term care or protecting your money, grab one of those stickies or fill out the green sheet, give it to Chanel. We'd be happy to help you out. And last but not least, for government workers, I'm going to share this with you, and it's inside of your folder. And this is in reference to what's going on with the government. And basically, I know this is a difficult time for a lot of people. And a lot of people want to know, what can I do? Let me just share a couple of ideas with you. Work for the government or contractor, stay informed, keep communications, and make sure you understand. One of the reasons why the lady was crying in my office last week was because she said she didn't really understand what she signed. They told her you had to sign it by 12 o'clock or we might fire you. And she signed it. And then she went in the bathroom and said, broke down and cried for the next 2 hours. And she said she's crying every day because she misses her job. So try to stay informed. Try to get as much information as you can ahead of time. If you want a job and you're not sure, get as much information. Don't wait till they come to you. In fact, I would share with people, start working on your resume just in case. Half the people that come see me from the government, some of them say, I think I'm okay. The other half say, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to have a job. What can I do? I'd say work on your skills. Look at something else that you might be able to do that you like doing. Definitely update your resume. Update your resume. If you don't get fired or laid off, you just got a new resume. But if you do get laid off, at least you got a game plan. So the idea is you want to be proactive. This is real. You might want to be proactive and start getting things set up just in case you get cut. Does that make sense? Anyway, this sheet is inside of your folders. It gives you some ideas of what you can do if you work for the government or if you get laid off. All right, questions. Anybody have questions? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
That's our audio team on the job. Concerning wills, trusts, durable power of attorneys, do you have to have it notarized to be bindable in court? Or can you just sign it? Will the signature do, or do you have to have it notarized? And can you put it on file in the court system?
I would definitely have it notarized. Definitely have it notarized. It may still have legal effect. I can't say about a trust because my personal trust, my attorney, boom, he had a notary come in and notarize everything while I was there. So I think trusts are probably all notarized. If an attorney's helping me with a will, they're probably going to have that notarized. So I would do that for sure. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have validity if it's not.
Okay.
Because remember I said that even if you don't get a will or trust, write it down. It still could be effective for your family to know your wishes. You can write it down. We used to give you little booklets. We don't have them do them right now. I used to do a lot of final expense plans for older people when I first started in this business 33 years ago. And we used to give them a booklet. And the booklet they would write down what they want their family to do, even what kind of clothes they might want to wear, everything. So write it down. Even if you don't get it notarized, write it down. Let your family know. Make it easy for them. I would get it notarized, though.
Yes. And the last question is concerning the Ladybird deeds or the deeds that we have.
Yes, it's not actually a Ladybird in Maryland. It's a deed, yes.
Yes, understood. That doesn't apply if you currently have a mortgage. It's only if your property is paid in full.
That's not my understanding. Because
I'm asking.
Oh, no. No, it's just telling them because that doesn't mean they're not going to have a mortgage, but it's going to be their property. It's like right now, it's your house, right?
Right.
Even if you have a mortgage, it's still your house. So you can give it to somebody else they still got a mortgage.
Yes, but I knew somebody who was in that situation and they had to deal with the bank. So the bank made them go through the whole loan process in
Okay.
order to transfer the loan to them, even though they had this special type of.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was all about, but
Okay.
yeah. But there are deeds that can help you transfer property without probate.
Okay.
I'm not saying now what you might have to do financially is a different story.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I noticed you only spoke on the 401k. You don't deal with the 401a?
They're all the same. 401k, 401a,
Slightly different though. 401a is slightly different.
Well, here's the point. The point is qualified plans. A qualified plan is a plan that you haven't paid the taxes yet. So 401k, 403b, 457, 401a, TSP, for something. So there's
It's just that I was private and I noticed you were speaking.
no, there's for the most part, every person that has come to see us that has a 401a and a 401k, they've almost been identical except for maybe certain allocations that is in one that's not in the other. 457, you can't 457, you can't move money until you separate from service. 401k, 59 and a half, you can move it. So there's some rules, but there's still qualified plans for the most part.
I was just saying, just in case somebody else was in here with a 401a or 450.
Yeah, 457, same thing. 401k, 401a, that all of that is in that category. Yes, ma'am.
If you have a power of attorney for a parent and you want their house to go into a living trust, if they have like slight dementia, do you need them to sign?
No.
So
We sold my mother's house. I have power of attorney. Actually, me and my brother and sister have power of attorney, and we sold the house. At first, we kept the house for years, and while my father needed help, my mom needed help. I had 3 or 4 people come to the house. I was running back and forth, taking care of all this stuff. At first, that was me. I was taking care of everything. Because usually it says one child is going to take care of stuff. I went to a class like 10 years ago, and a lady said, I don't care if you have 8 children. Statistics shows one person going to step up. And I'm thinking that's going to be me, right? Yep. And it was. But now my brother has stepped up. But anyway, I was taking care of everything. And finally, we got to the point where I said, you know what? First, I thought about personally buying a house, and then I didn't want to go through trouble with my brothers and sisters later on down the road because people, start arguing. How did you end up with the house? So we decided to sell it. No problems. We had power of attorney. They accepted it. We sold the house. Put the money in the bank so we could take care of mom. And by the way, my parents had long-term care, and somebody talked them out of and told them to drop it. The long-term care would have paid close to between the two of them, close to $500,000, and we dropped it. And I felt like I didn't fight hard enough. I should have, I didn't want to fight. It was one of my siblings. I really didn't want to fight with him. So, but if I could go back, if I could go back in time, I'd be on. I don't care if you don't speak to me. They ain't dropping that long-term care. Anybody else? Okay, we got to wrap this up. So maybe one more.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I was going to say something. I just wanted to ask you, for the first meeting, is it a complimentary meeting? And do you have a fee?
No, ma'am. It is totally complimentary. There's no fee for this. If you want to we do income analysis for people who say, well, how am I going to have enough income? I got a 401k, Social Security, enough income. We can do what's called an income analysis. We can show you how to make your money last for the rest of your. We can show you to take some money, put it in a bucket, and make it till you leave the planet. We don't even charge for that.
Okay.
We do risk analysis too. And the risk analysis, for people who have too much money in the market, you say, well, I don't know what to do with it. We show you how to make your money safe. There's no charge. No charge.
Okay. So I set up an appointment. Okay. So I'll be meeting with you.
All right. Yeah. Well, yeah. If you want to get an appointment, grab one of the stickies in the back.
We can take one more question and then we have to wrap it up.
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you for the knowledge that you have imparted. 2 questions. I'm going to ask about the 401k.
Okay.
Which I'm familiar with. But we're talking about someone that might be 70 that have never used the Roth. At 73, they start the disbursement.
Right.
Can you, well, I know you can't because you can take it to roll it over to a Roth. Is that a trigger to internal revenue if you just take a huge one-time transfer into the Roth, taking it out of 401k, so it's not taxable on that end. Or you were still going to look at it as a pre-tax, even though you roll it into the Roth to use later.
If you roll it over into the Roth, it is no longer pre-tax.
Okay.
Now that it's not even after tax. It's Roth, which is totally separate. Now, remember, with a Roth IRA, you can't use the principal for 5 years. Okay, so if young folk, everybody else should start a Roth. Go to the bank and start a Roth.
Well, I did for all of my grandkids.
Yeah, that was smart. Very smart. Y'all give her a round of applause. That was smart. Give her a round of applause. That was smart.
And the second one was the trust, because we're looking to put my home into a trust.
Okay.
But to keep it in the family, even after everybody turn into a rental. But I think you may have.
That's an irrevocable trust. Yeah.
Oh, it is. So you can't just put it in the trust and then use that.
You could put it in a revocable trust, but
no, a permanent trust.
If you wanted to be permanent, if you wanted to go through, nobody can sell it. It's irrevocable.
Right. Correct. Don't want it sold. Want it to stay in the house.
It's irrevocable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you for your questions. And anything we can do to help out, please let us know. Okay.
Thank you.